So good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for today's webinar on how to eliminate safety reporting roadblocks with apps and automation. My name is Callum Greaves, and I'm the head of marketing here at Notify Technology. And today I'm joined by Johnny Ridley. So he's our new business manager. Johnny has worked with Notify for nearly 5 years, but he's actually been in the health and safety industry for over 8 years and has worked with kind of hundreds of safety leaders and businesses to implement technology that provides data and insight to really help them sort of proactively manage and reduce workplace risks. So a little look at the agenda for today. So in the session, we'll kind of start with who we are here at Notify, for those who kind of aren't aware of who we are and what we're all about. And we'll delve into a little bit around what drives us to create a safer, healthier world of work. We'll then briefly reflect on kind of why manual, paper, and Excel-based processes, as well as sometimes clunky systems. We know a lot of people are kind of using, outdated systems that are not really fit for purpose. They struggle to get data from it. They struggle to get engagement from employees. So why all those types of systems and processes are potentially holding you back. After that, Johnny will demonstrate how easy to use mobile apps and cloud-based software can really get employees engaged. So you guys can capture more data and more insight to proactively manage and reduce workplace risk. At the end of the session, obviously, we'll open that up to you guys, open up to the floor for any questions that you may have. But similar to any other webinar, right? There's a Q&A tab at the top there you can see in Teams. So we really do encourage you to ask any and all questions throughout the session. And then myself and Johnny will go through those at the end. So without further ado, we'll get started. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Notify and what we're all about, we're a health and safety software partner who empower safety leaders kind of like you and businesses to get ahead of risk. So our purpose is quite simple, really. We want to create a safer, healthier world of work. So unlike quite a lot of software vendors out there, we're not just kind of building software. We're really partnering with safety leaders like you to help them drive sort of real impact in their organizations. We're very much aware that you guys are the safety experts and we're the technology experts. So what we want to do is kind of work with you to help drive our product roadmap to ensure our software solves your biggest challenges. Internally in Notify, we work with our customers on a daily basis. We have regular product focus groups and that sort of thing. So we don't just get feedback from our customers. We kind of proactively go out to them and say, this is what we're thinking of working on. Can we do some A/B testing? Can we beta test this? Does this work for you? What do we need to change? And really work with you and partner with you to develop our solutions. So with our software and obviously our apps as well, you can see some of the impact our solutions have had, not only reducing time, cost, and generating that data and insight, but also helping to reduce accidents in the workplace. I think as well, we kind of know, speaking to your peers, anyone who might be coming up against finance directors or CFOs when it comes to implementing software, you can see a really nice metric there, which demonstrates some tangible cost savings. Yourselves, fewer accidents, fewer absenteeism, which ultimately means more efficient operations and higher levels of productivity, I guess, from you and your workforce. So how do we do this? Well, we have a range of modules that are really specifically designed to engage employees in safety. We really want to empower your workforce and your safety teams as well to capture accurate and consistent data. So you can really use that insight and intelligence to make quicker, smarter safety decisions. For us, it's all about being proactive, staying compliant without complexity. So without having to manually input data into spreadsheets, create reports on a regular basis. So that manual admin time, we really want to take that away. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is just ensure that all employees work safe and go home safe. During this webinar, we're going to focus on incident management and investigations. But if you're interested in seeing how our other modules work, you can see there we do a range from audits and inspections to action tracking to risk assessments to document management and obviously the safety intelligence offering, which kind of underpins the data which is pulled from all those modules. Feel free to email myself or Johnny or head over to our website and you can book a demo or even try our software for free with like interactive product tours and that sort of thing. So that's a little bit about us and what we do here at Notify. But today is all about how we help you tackle incident reporting challenges head on. So as a health and safety software partner, we speak with safety leaders like you every single day. And we know how frustrating it can be when your incident reporting process kind of slows everything down. And we know it adds pressure and it kind of leaves you unsure whether people are truly protected. Is there like a hazard that's gone undetected? Is there near misses that's not being actioned? Is there one site that's having more near misses than the other? Without kind of having a centralized place with all that data, it's really difficult to see that insight and then make decisions based on that. We really understand the challenges you face, kind of not just in remaining compliant. I think that's probably one of the biggest headaches that we hear from your peers. Staying compliant and keeping up with regulations is a real challenge. But it's also creating that culture, and maybe not necessarily a safety culture, but a business culture that kind of embraces safety, where people feel empowered to report incidents and near misses without consequence. And obviously having a place where that information can be acted upon quickly and efficiently is really important to kind of minimize that risk. So the slide here you'll see highlights just some of the common frustrations that we hear time and time again when it comes to incident reporting. So I'm sure a lot of you on the call, a lot of these will resonate with you guys. And obviously we'll talk a little bit around how we can mitigate against some of these with apps and software. So I mean, things like, it's manual, it's slow, actions and investigations are really difficult to keep track of. And obviously you can't see the insight that you're getting. It's all kind of common frustrations that we hear, like really on a daily basis when we're speaking to people like you. So the solution. So with Notify, we're really here to help you simplify and strengthen your incident reporting processes, so that your people can report quickly. Investigations can almost begin immediately, so you're really mitigating that risk at the point of report. And really what we're trying to do is give you that insight so you and your teams can make informed decisions faster and obviously with more confidence as well. So with that in mind, we'll take a closer look at how we can support you in achieving exactly that. So Johnny, I shall hand that over to you.
Bill, morning everybody. Appreciate so many people being on here this morning, and yeah, thanks for the introduction, Callum. I mean, there's three things that we're really going to focus on today through the incident reporting aspect, and Callum alluded to that through the agenda, but just wanted to really highlight that before we get into the tool. Engaging our workforce. Ultimately, if we don't get the buy-in, we can have all the bells and whistles through any software tool that we like, but if we don't have the data to go into it, what really can we achieve? So how do we really engage that end user, how do we engage the workforce, and ultimately, how do we make it as easy as possible for them to report something? So that's going to be the first step of the process, but I'm going to take you into the app and what the end users experience through the reporting process. We're then going to jump into the management aspect of the platform, which is going to be around how do we conduct the investigations, how do we save time, but also remain by demonstrating compliance and our assurance through our audit trails, for everything like that. And then we're going to close out really by looking at, okay, so once we've got those processes in place, what data can we get out of this? So with that in mind, what I'm going to do first, I'm going to share my screen on my phone, and we're going to go into how do we engage the end user workforce. So Callum, I'm going to be relying on you to tell me that the tech's working. Can we see that, Cal?
Yeah, all good, Johnny.
Brilliant. Perfect. So in the bottom right hand corner of my screen here, what you should be able to see is the Notify Incident Management app. Now, I'm going to load this up, but we're just going to talk a little bit about why having app-based solutions are so important. So firstly, this is a native app. So in terms of your team, if they use Android devices, they use Apple devices, they use different tablets at different stations, depending on what industry you're in. The important thing for us is that this needs to be available offline. So having a native app that functions offline is pivotal, because ultimately, if we have end users that are walking from one end of a site to another, or they're taking 15 minutes until they have some signal, or they go to another area of the site, ultimately, they're reporting based off memory then. And actually, that's just skewing the accuracy of our data. So a real key aspect for us is being able to get them to report live, do it offline, and let it sync up to the platform once they have some signal again without them having to worry. Now, what we do have here, as we can see in the app, we've got to give them a different ability to report different things. But actually, with everybody on the call sort of being our safety experts here, what we have to remember and understand is that our end users aren't experts. We've got to simplify this for them. So you see here below the, say, near miss, for example, having those small descriptions of what it is to be reported, again, reduces the number of mistakes that are made. So again, reduces the number of manual tasks and manual things that we've got to go in and change. So for the purpose of today's session, what we're going to do is we're going to run through the reporting process of a near miss. How can we get this reported through the Notify platform? So I'm going to click into near miss, and you can see here, everything is based on making it simple for our end user. When did it happen and who was it reported by? You see, because of the toggle at the bottom, once you've reported something in here once and you've saved your details, this is a page that they can almost skip past. So once they've reported something in here once, it's a 30 to 60-second task for our end users to be able to report something. Now, if we make it simple and make it easy, they will engage with this. But actually, if we keep our end users in here 2-3 minutes, all of a sudden we're making it hard for them, and ultimately we're pushing them towards a disengagement, and we can't afford that. We then come into the near miss details, and again, this is about you configuring this to make it bespoke to your business, but also making it so that your end users understand. So when you say, please describe what happened, okay, was it a slip hazard? Was it a trip hazard? Was the fire exit obstructed? Okay, yeah, there was a trip hazard. Okay, what was that trip hazard? There was something that was left out on the floor. And okay, was there any signage there? No, there wasn't. I didn't see any signage, so incorrect or missing signage. How do we make it so that we can almost make it as simple as possible for them and almost have our end users not have to think and just be able to go based off what they saw? Now, a really important aspect is to be able to take the manual tasks away here is when we can trigger some of our workflows to take place. So, for example, if I answer yes and yes to is it unsafe and are we concerned, this auto triggers to become a high priority. So a number of times I bet it's happened to a lot of people on the call where actually something's happened that's high priority, which means that actually the manual task falls at your door that you've got to go and send an email to let a load of people across the business know that, okay, something's happened here. But that's just creating a manual task and getting you focusing more on inputs as opposed to outputs. So what this does, we auto trigger, it bases as triggers to a high priority, and we can automate the notification process of actually this has to let some of our C-suite know, this has to let some of our team know in different areas that something's happened. But you'll notice on the bottom, you might see a text box and you think, oh, well, yeah, most things have text boxes. But actually, what's really important is there will be lots of your workforce and end users who articulate their message much clearer via speaking as opposed to writing. We've got to make it so it's the simplest way for them to be able to report. So below that return button, you see there's a little microphone. Click the microphone, let them talk into it, and it's speech to text. If so, again, not only considering actually a lot of our end users' native tongue might not be English, for example, but actually they may speak it a lot more confidently than they write. So actually, let's get the best version of everybody's message in here. Again, make it really simple. Where did it happen? You're building this, you're constructing this through your org structure. Where's Johnny at the minute? Johnny's in Amble. What part of Amble is he in? He's just in the manufacturing area of Amble. But if you want to go into a little bit more detail, actually, you can specify, put the address in, or simply click the map. That geotags to my location. One less thing to think about. Let the geolocation take over. Now, when it comes to taking photographs, again, this is pivotal to when we're having our frontline report come in. But what a lot of people don't realize when they're reporting is a lot of your end users will be accessing this through personal devices, for example. So when they're taking the photographs, their photographs are storing onto some personal devices. So from a GDPR perspective, they've got confidential incident photographs stored here, there, and everywhere. So when we take a picture, and just for the sake of this, I'm going to take a picture of my mouse on the desk. When we take the picture through the Notify platform here, using the take picture button, this will not save to the device, so there's no risk of confidential incident photographs being stored on people's personal devices. Another piece to sort of encourage engagement with our end users, let them think for themselves a little bit once we get our engagement through our end users. Is there any actions they can think of? And this is just an inclusion process. Let them think, okay, well, this is actually what I would do. So let them create and manage their own actions through this. And the last piece of the puzzle, summary page. Are they happy with everything they've reported? Let's say in this case, the answer is yes. I click submit. That's my job done as the end user. Make it really, really simple. Let them fly through the form, get them in and out as quick as possible. And that's how we're going to encourage engagement in the first stage anyway. So once that's been reported and that comes in, where we're going to go to next is, okay, well, how do we demonstrate our compliance? How do we follow that up? How do we make sure that this process is as synced as possible? So Callum, relying on you again here, has that transferred across as it should have done?
It has, Johnny. Yeah, we can see that.
Brill, perfect. So what we're going to do here is we're going to log in and we're going to go through the process. We're going to follow this instant or this near miss right the way through. So I'm going to log into the platform here. And an important caveat that I've given here is that I have given myself role and access based permissions to see everything across the business. So actually, if you're a business that have multiple different sites or departments, or you're a global brand and have lots of different countries, what's really, really important is that we have the ability to give you role and access based permissions so that people aren't seeing data that's not relevant to them, and actually they can just focus on the tasks that they have. So when I log in here, what I'm met with is a user dashboard. So I can see here I've got 31 near misses that have been created, 29 of which are still open. I've had 4 injuries that are created, 2 of which haven't yet been closed out or investigated. So the purpose of this, we've got to give ourselves a top level overview of what's going on, but make it a click away from going and doing something about it. That's the key here. Now, Callum alluded to the fact in the introduction that we have a number of different modules, and you can see on the left-hand side here that this is the case. So we've got our safety intelligence functionality for all of our modules. We've got our actions, our audits, our incidents, our RAMs. But today's session is primarily focusing just on the incident reporting. But like Callum said, if anybody wants to see anything, any of the other modules, feel free to get in touch, and we also run some additional webinars on some of the different functionality as well. But we're going to click into the incident module here, and across the top we've got to make it really easy even for our safety team. So we've got to give the filtering options. How can I get to what I need to get to as quick as possible? And it's by having a load of different filters. So if I just want to filter by, okay, what near misses have happened in the last period of time, I want to filter by the ones that are still open. And immediately when I come to the top here, you can see this is the one we've just reported into the app. Now, each individual incident will be tracked and logged with its own unique code. So again, the push and the message from us here is we've got to have one source of the truth. If we start searching for things in different places when we're getting externally audited, it becomes really difficult, and we're just making our lives harder than they need to be. So I click into this, and firstly, just because it's a bit of software doesn't mean it's not prone to human error. We know that, even as the technologists here, there's going to be human error. What we got to do is say, for example, in this case, Johnny reported a near miss because he fell over but didn't hurt himself. We know that's not a near miss. Something happened. You go in, you change the incident type, and you can give the relevant feedback to Johnny as to why that wasn't a near miss. So actually that continuous learning piece is just as important for our engagement with our end users, because they're aware that we're picking these things up, and we're picking these things up quickly. Now, when we talk about having everything in one place and one source of the truth, the attachments is the almost epitomizes that. So witness statements, CCTV footage, copies of RAMs, insurance documents, making sure that actually if we're ever going to go through something like being externally audited, which I'm assuming most on the call have, then actually it's really important that we don't have things dotted all over the place, and we can go into an incident record and be confident in the fact that all our data sits in one place. So the most important part for us here in terms of demonstrating our compliance is the audit trail. So across the bottom, you'll see here when something happened, who it was that did it, and a description of what was done. And I guess I alluded to it earlier in the app around how important some of these triggers are to take away the manual process from yourself. And we can see this live in the way that the audit trail is here. So Johnny reported this. So thank you message goes straight out to our end user, Johnny. It goes into Johnny's team who look after that department. But because it was subject to a high priority, we were also able to automate the notifications to all of the relevant other members of the team, whether that be the C-suite, whether that be different departments, whether that be anyone you need to have access to this. We're saving you a manual step. Now, we can also leave comments to one another, and this is a really useful tool. Now, you might think, well, it's just a comments box, but actually, how many of us are guilty of, we have an incident, things go into an email, things go into a WhatsApp, but then when we're dealing with insurance claims, and it can be 2.5, 3 years after the fact, I mean, I struggle finding emails from last week, never mind when I'm starting to deal with 2.5, 3 years ago. So actually, how important is it that we have these conversations within one place where all of the documents and all of the information is stored? We also come into having the ability to create and manage our actions. So when I add an action here, and I might just use an example, which might be, please replace signage. Now, what's really important for us at Notify is that we don't exclude anyone from being able to receive those actions. So a lot of people that you might see, a lot of software tools, actually, they might say, well, oh, you've got to have a license to be able to do that. But actually, what I want to do is I want to be able to send an action to anybody across the business. So I'm going to send this to Paul. I'm going to mark this as a medium priority so that we know when this needs to be done by. How do we want to categorize this? But also, if you're working towards any of the ISO accreditations, in this case, let's say 45001, we can really start to go in and demonstrate how we were doing that and which areas we were working towards. So then when it comes to being coming up for recertification, it's not a scramble in the last month for looking for that data and saying, okay, how do we prove something, which actually a lot of the time for your safety leaders is business as usual work. Now, across the bottom here, we can assign out, we can edit, we can cancel, investigate, close out, export to PDF or share. Now with the export, you'll see here we've split this into two. So summary and full. Now if you're sharing with any third parties, you're sharing with any contractors, anything like that, what's really important is that we have the ability to pick and choose what's relevant, and most importantly, to remove the personal data. But if we go into investigate this form, for example, everything you see in here can be completely customized, so you can even build your own investigation forms if you're happy with them. But what we've done is we've just built these using a little bit of logic. So for example, was the area made safe? Yes. No. Okay, what was done to make it safe? No. Why wasn't it made safe? So based on the answer to the question, we're going to take you down a slightly different path in the information that we ask from you. We then work through some real general questions, but the reason that we make this so configurable is on the basis that actually a lot of you will carry out your root cause analysis in a lot of different ways. So this could be you use 5 whys, this could be you use fishbone. Lots of people will use a blend of a few different ways. And as the technologists, who are we to dictate how you carry out your root cause analysis? So we've got to make the tool configurable so it fits the processes. We're just trying to make them a little bit more efficient in the way that you conduct them. But a key here, and we're going to refer back to this all the time in this, is engaging our end users. And Callum shared this, some of the quotes on the feedback around what we get from our customers. And I think one of the biggest ones that we see actually is I really struggle engaging my end users. I really struggle to disengage. I struggle to get reports. And actually, what I say to a lot of the customers that come and speak to us are, well, how do you let your end users know that what they did was a good thing? Far too often we hear the case of, well, an end user reported something and 3 months later they'd still never heard about what happened. Now, how do we expect engagement when we don't let someone know that what they did is a positive thing, or give anyone any feedback, or any lead to any continuous learning? So, for example, it's amazing how important having something like saying, thanks for reporting this, keep up the good work. So now with the notify tool, they will receive a notification, an automated thank you when they originally report. If you do an investigation, they will receive the feedback as mandatory as part of the investigation, and they will also be notified when it's closed out. So every step of the way through the circle and through the journey of that process, the end user is front and center. They're being continuously involved, and that's ultimately how we keep engagement and retain engagement with our end users. We've got to talk to them. We've got to treat them as with a little bit of almost feedback culture. So I'm going to come out of here. And the last piece of the puzzle that we really want to cover before we get into some questions, we've been into, engaging the end users, demonstrating the compliance, looking through some of the investigations and how we can make it a little bit more efficient. But ultimately, and I bet a lot of the reasons that the people are here on the call is because they're struggling with the data. How much time are people spending in pivot tables and having to create data and having the C-suite ask them for different bits of data month on month and quarter on quarter? So how do we get access to the data really quickly? So I'm going to filter by my Amble site, and we're just going to run through some top level data and what can we get out of the platform in a couple of clicks of a button. So for example, across the top here, our reportable incidents, our total lost days, our lost time incidents, with our accident frequency rates, where we also have an inbuilt hours worked management tool here. So actually for the divisional managers, if they're inputting their hours, we can get a true calculation of that lost time. But across the bottom, this is what's going to tell you a really nice story in terms of your engagement with your end users and in terms of the data that we need to get to quickly. So I can see here 237 near misses, 14 injuries. If I click the three dots, for example, how important is it to be able to get this data out to PowerPoint, to Word, to PDF, to CSV, so that actually when we're exporting this out, all of a sudden it's 2 clicks of a button to get this into a board report or to get this into a monthly safety report. And we're scraping it using the live data, so that actually when I drill down into this, I see I've got 14 injuries. Okay, what's causing those, with a breakdown in the color code of what became lost time and reportable. Now, we can also get into, someone was hit by a falling object. What is it? It's products falling off shelving that's causing the lost time and reportable. But if we want to drill into the body parts, we want to drill into time of day, day of the week. Is it Friday at 12 o'clock when people have half an eye on the weekend, when inadequate safe behaviour start to sneak in? And we really want you to be able to get to that level of granularity around your data. Now, when it comes to the engagement of your end users, and I think everyone on the call can tell how passionate I am about end user engagement and this being the key here, the utilization tab is what is going to be ultimately the goal for you. So if we look at this, you can see March of 25, I had the highest number of reports come into my area. We had 35 reports come in. But if I look at the blue line that runs across the bottom, you can see in the little white box there, yes, we had 35 reports come in, but it was only across 5 different people that reported it, because that's our unique reporters count. So actually, do we have a few outstanding individuals that are propping our data up and making it look and tell a different story to what the reality is? Or is this being widely adopted across our end user base? And it's really important month on month that we have the ability to track that. And then once we got into that, we can start to see, okay, where in our business are people performing? So if I come into here, you see across my Amble division, 92% of everything we report in is a near miss. Brilliant. But I'd quite like to see that drilled down a little bit and split that out through my division. So I drill that down and I can say, okay, perfect. My manufacturing site, 194 reports, 95% near miss rate. Culturally, brilliant. But in my fire department, they've only ever reported 9 things and a third of them are injuries. So what are they not doing that other people are doing so well? And what it allows us to do is target our areas of focus really quickly. Now, a lot of people are being guilty of say, blanket approaches to training, but actually, if we enforce the training on near miss reporting into our manufacturing site, who actually have reported nearly 200, that actually, would that do more harm than good in terms of disengaging because they already have a really good idea and they're already culturally brilliant? So from what I wanted to cover in the session there, that's really what I wanted to walk you through as an end-to-end process. Wanted to leave us 10 or 15 minutes here just to cover some questions and to close out. So Callum, happy to hand it back across to you.
Yeah, perfect. Thanks, Johnny. No, really good insight there. I think especially the dashboards piece, that really does give the insight to help inform, where you can kind of prioritize your improvement initiatives. Like we know again when we're speaking to people at the moment, like resource and time is a big issue. So having that data to almost like back up those decisions and empower you to make them. So you can focus on areas where needs improvement as opposed to something which is, doing fine, like people are acting safely there. Is really, really powerful. Really, really powerful. Cool. So yeah, so I guess just to kind of wrap up before we get into some of the Q&A, just some really key takeaways here. So I think from my side, mobile apps and safety software can really increase employee engagement. We've seen customers say like a 10 times increase. One of our most recent customers, a big sort of transport and logistics company, they were on board for maybe 6 weeks and they saw 1,500 more like positive safety observations, which was great because it's, that's people demonstrating positive safety behavior. But I think what's more is that the key sort of safety leader there was saying that was coming from a lot more different people. So it wasn't just the same people that were just reporting the same thing. There's people from different sites, different departments, all getting involved because the app was just that easy to use. So that was really, really good. It's given them more data and obviously more learning to really get ahead of risk. If you've got something which is easy to use, like Johnny alluded to, your workforce are far more likely to report a safety event. Again, I think one of the biggest for us is the ability to assign actions when submitting an incident report. And obviously that real-time notification can significantly reduce that response time. I think like thinking back to one of the frustrations, again, that one of our customers saw, it was almost like 3 emails to report an near miss. So a near miss would go to their manager, who would then go to the safety team, who would then go to the head of health and safety to try and do something about it. So by the time that kind of gets around the houses and people can action it, that risk is still present and it could lead to an accident. Whereas if you've got something that gives like a notification for a high priority incident, you really can act on that straight away and reduce that risk. Obviously, in the platform like Notify, all activity is logged and visible in one central location. So again, as Johnny mentioned, you can easily track the status of investigations, which really will help you to demonstrate compliance with the HSE and obviously your local regulations as well. I think for us, proactive risk management really starts with collecting that data and collating that data. So again, I know we've kind of hammered on about it, but it's really engaging employees to feel to make them empowered so they can report. Once you have that data, you can use that insight, you can use dashboards, you can kind of pull that data together to identify trends and patterns. And this in turn can really empower you to kind of improve, like prioritize those improvement initiatives and allocate resources efficiently. So questions and answers. So we'll kind of open it to you guys. If you've got any questions for either myself or for Johnny, feel free to put those in the chat now. I know we did have a couple of people who sent their apologies who couldn't make it, and they sent us a few questions in just to get some responses that they could view on the recording, so we can go through those as well. But obviously happy to take any from the floor too. So just give it a moment there.
We've got one in the Q&A, Callum.
Yeah, I can see that from Stephen. So thank you, Stephen. So is it mandatory to add your name to reporting? We find somewhat reluctant to include their name for whatever reason. We currently make this optional.
Yeah, so I guess the easiest answer is no, it's not mandatory, and it's completely up to each customer that comes on board with Notify. So like we alluded to in the app, everything is completely customizable. So if you see much more success in them and you see a lot more engagement come from your end users by making it optional, we know there is a stigma around whistleblowing and people not feeling comfortable putting their names against things. So actually, if you want to carry out anonymous reporting or you want to just make the name option optional, yeah, completely up to you how you do that, Stephen.
Well, thank you, Johnny. Thank you, Johnny. Any more from the floor before we get into some of the questions? I mean, obviously the questions that have come in might be applicable to yourselves as well. So worth staying around and having to listen to those. But I'll just give it a few more seconds in case there's any more on the floor. So we've got a couple more in here. So one from Phoebe. So she's in quite a few, Johnny. So we'll go through these one at a time.
Cool.
So Phoebe, great to get those in. So how to include manual reported incidents. So users without smartphones.
So I guess for end users that don't have the ability to report something themselves.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, or not having I guess a known personal device. Like, how could organizations potentially get around that?
So again, if they don't have their own personal device, we access this via the QR code. So they can scan the QR code and get straight into the form. If we're alluding to the question around if there's no smartphones or if you're on a site where there's no access to phones, we see that a lot on some of the manufacturing floors. We actually often have people where they have stations with they might have different tablets, or they might go to a line manager and the line manager is responsible for reporting it live with the end user. So there's a number of different ways that we get around this, but believe me, across the last 8 years, we've almost seen every use case of like end users not being able to access it or simply just being opposed to tech. So yeah, there's a number of different ways we could do it, but be great to show a couple of different options as well.
Cool. Cool. I think there's another question from Phoebe there, Johnny, around generating QR codes for people without the app. So I mean, obviously, yeah, we can do that, and I think maybe just touch upon, Johnny, the specific QR codes that we can create for different events as well.
Yeah, so we can generate a QR code for a number of different individual forms, but we can also generate the QR code so they could get access to every form. So it's completely up to you. You might want to just drop QR codes around different areas of site for different things. You might want to do it for individual forms. So we leave it completely up to you how you want to generate that.
Cool, thanks, Johnny. And just a couple more from Phoebe. So, what kind of support does your team provide? So, I guess this is in relation to us account management and customer success.
Yeah, so each customer when they come on board will be assigned a designated member of the customer success team, but also throughout the onboarding journey, you'll receive a member of the onboarding and support team. So it's almost that making sure that we make a success of the rollout, making sure that we follow that train the trainer approach, so you're really comfortable, but also not only the support of our people. What's really important to mention, we've got an inbuilt knowledge center which is in the platform with how-to guides on how to go and do everything. So actually, lots of time people don't want to pick up the phone. They just want to know quickly how to go and do something. So actually, if you want to just go and do that yourself, we've got the inbuilt help desk.
Cool, thanks, Johnny. The next one I'm going to kind of tie into two because so Steve's asked one around dashboard only showing health and safety oriented information. So there's another one for quality or environmental stuff. And obviously Phoebe saying, can you customize the data shown in the dashboard? So I guess that kind of leads into one question there.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll answer the first bit of the can you customize the data in the dashboard? Yes, because ultimately the data is only capturing the data that the dashboards are only capturing the data that you wanted to collate. So, for example, if we come on to the question around can we do it for quality or environment, so long as you're capturing that quality and environment data, then absolutely. So we've got customizable dashboards. The data that you collate and the data that ultimately gets inputted, we can get out through the dashboards.
I think just important to emphasize there as well, Johnny. So just for your background knowledge, Steve, with the app that Johnny showcased there, you can really customize those event types to anything you need. We've got customers like say McDonald's, for example, reporting customer complaints. You've got people reporting, product quality events. You've got people reporting, like I say, environmental incidents. So that can really be customized completely to your business. So obviously, like Johnny said, all that information will just go into the dashboard, and you can view that as he kind of showed there. Cool. Another couple here from Phoebe before we move on to others. So is the status automatically closed? So I'm guessing she's referring to the incident investigation status here, Johnny, and can it be reviewed before closing?
Yeah, absolutely. So no, it's not automatically closed. I mean, we do have some triggers where, for example, if you've got small safety teams and there's some positive observations or some observations that are being reported, that we can auto trigger them, things to close if we need to. But no, absolutely, we can create review processes and make sure that things go through approval processes before closure. So again, I might sound a little bit like a broken record here. It's up to you how you create and design this. So we give you the ability to control and manage this however you like.
Perfect. Perfect. And the last one from Phoebe. So can the platform integrate with other systems?
Yeah, so we've got a public API. So for example, the biggest use case that we see at the minute is that the safety team care about some data, but the data that the business collate and the way that the business collate data might be through Power BI, for example. So actually what we do is we have a direct integration into Power BI so that the data that you're reporting on in a monthly and a quarterly basis can automatically go into Power BI without it really interfering with the day-to-day data that you care about. So that's just an example, but yeah, we've got a public API that's readily available.
Cool, thanks, Johnny. And there's a few in the chat as well, actually. So it's one from Michael here. So is the app and software suitable for a civil service environment?
I don't see why not. There's risks everywhere, right? So if the app
Absolutely.
is, what I would see is we see a lot of customers that report things in an office environment. So where we might have QR codes that are just posted up on different areas of sites, right? So I would say that the app's applicable everywhere where there's risk, because ultimately, as safety leaders, we need to be aware of those risks. So just because we're in an office or a lower risk environment doesn't mean that we should not report as many near misses, for example. So absolutely, it's definitely applicable to a civil service area.
Cool, thanks, Johnny. I think there's just one more that I can see from Masonda. So after a near miss is reclassified, does it stay in the placeholder of notify, or does it go to another app?
I'm not sure what that means in terms of another app, but say if what I'm taking from that is that, say I've reported something which is incorrect and we've reclassified a near miss to an injury, for example.
I think so, Johnny. Yeah.
Yeah, perfect, great. So yeah, it would absolutely stay where it is. We're just reclassifying it, and what we'll do is, as through your processes, you'll have different ports of call and what different processes per different report. So for a near miss, for example, you may have a one-stage investigation plan, whereas for an injury, you may have a multi-stage. So what's really important is, as soon as we reclassify that it re-triggers into the correct process that we need to follow to get that closed out.
Cool. That's great. That's great. So there's no more from the floor, Johnny. So there was a couple from people who couldn't make it. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but we can quickly scoot through those.
Cool.
So yeah, so I think one of the questions was, can you see what reports have moved status? So for example, can you see what reports are now being investigated? So I guess that's, so if someone's reported something and you've opened an investigation, can you see the status of that? And can end users see the status of that as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So what's really important for us is that when we came into the user dashboard, and I mentioned that actually we want to be able to see a top level of what's happening and what the status of things are. So we see we've got 4 injuries created, 2 in an investigation state, 2 are still open. So we really want to see, when we click into that, okay, well, what's the status of the investigation these things are?
Perfect, perfect. And I know Steve just popped another one in there as well, so I'll come back to that in a second. But one of the other burning questions was, how customizable are the categories for incidents? So this person's put, I'm thinking if there's been an incident which has led to an insurance claim, for example, could I flag it so I can easily find and access those particular incidents?
Sorry, can you repeat the last bit of that? Sorry, Callum, that was a bit long-winded.
Yeah. So I think it's very much like, in case of, like, I know you obviously mentioned, Johnny, there's different categories you can filter by to find incidents. This is basically saying, can you flag something? So can you, like, almost categorize an incident as like a insurance claim, for example? So if that happens in the future, can you easily find that? So when it comes to the investigation or the HSE come knocking, you kind of got all those in one place to kind of prove that everything's been done.
Yeah, absolutely. So we've just actually recently launched our custom flags. So what you can do is you can create your custom triggers to flag, so that actually we can create almost folders within folders of, I want to filter by the certain flag. I want to filter by the number that are flagged with insurance claims against it. So we're almost placing those custom flags into different pots. So it makes it really easy for you to see all of your data.
Real, thank you. And then another one from Steve. This is kind of touching on another module, but was there a document management feature?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a document management module. I mean, if anybody, and I alluded to this during the demonstration, and there's always going to be lots of questions that come off the back of this because people are always looking for all in one, right? So if anybody wants to have a look at any session or wants to go through a session, I'm more than happy. And Callum shared my details on screen before, and we can do it post-session. If anyone wants to have a look at any of the additional modules functionality, I'm absolutely happy to take people through that.
Cool. Thanks, Johnny. And if we can squeeze these last few in from Phoebe. So just a clarification, do you offer training support for multiple teams during onboarding? And
Yeah.
is this included in the price?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so we'll factor all of that in. So I guess to just reiterate around the price, there's no upfront cost, there's no implementation costs. Everything that we do is really, really transparent in the way that we price, and we build everything in to make sure that it's what we don't want to do is we don't want transactional relationships where it's like, Johnny, can I do that? Well, yeah, that's going to cost, I'm going to send you another invoice. So we want to make it so that everything can be built into one, so that actually we can function on the relationship of how we're going to solve your problems as opposed to how do we get an extra £1.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess the next one, Johnny, I guess a bit of a tricky one. This, I personally don't think there's a way of doing it, but when the name is made anonymous, does the reporter still get notified without us seeing who they are?
No, not in that case, because if they're wanting to withhold the data from us, it's almost a little bit of give and take, isn't it? Like if they want to hold the name from us, they're going to have to expect that there won't be engagement from us back to them because they didn't want to tell us who they were. So no, that we don't have that functionality. I get the question in the sense of could they put their details in but click an anonymous box so nobody else sees it but they still get the notifications, but it's just not something that we offer today.
Yeah, I mean, like not inputting their contact details and stuff like their email address makes it really tricky to give that direct feedback, doesn't it, as well?
Of course it does.
Cool. And then just very last one here from Phoebe, Johnny. So can you use this for other safety-related action management? So she's saying, i.e. being triggered from meetings without uploading in a report. So I guess that's maybe some of the automation stuff. I know we're maybe looking at, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Phoebe, I'm thinking maybe some of the AI stuff in there where you can do things a bit more autonomously.
Yeah, I think mainly, Cal, as well, it sounds like just creating standalone actions off the back of meetings and things like that. So yes is the short answer. We don't have to create actions that are in relation to an incident report or relation to an inspection or a risk assessment. We can just create other safety related actions that come off the back of it, and we have them in the categories as almost standalone actions.
Perfect. Thanks, Johnny. Right, I think I mean we're 2 minutes over there, so apologies for running over slightly, but there's some great questions in there, so hopefully we address those as expected. Like Johnny said, we offer a range of modules in Notify, all geared towards employee engagement, trying to give you data and insight to help you proactively manage and reduce risk. So if you're interested in seeing how those work, please feel free to get in touch, and be more than happy to schedule a session over the next week or so to take you through those. That's it from us. Thank you very much for taking the time out and joining. I know everyone's busy, so great to have so many people on board. If you've got any questions, you kind of know where we both are. Yeah, thanks all.
Brilliant.
Enjoy.
Thanks, everybody.
Cheers now.